My name's Carl, and once upon a time, not in some fairy tale, but in real, suburban, lawn-mowing, dog-walking America, I had it all. Christy and I met in college, back when she wore sunflower earrings and I still had a full head of hair. She was studying early childhood education. I was studying business, but really just trying to look like I had a plan. She smiled like she had secrets and laughed like she trusted the world to be good. And somehow, she chose me. We weren't flashy. Didn't have millions in the bank or yachts on the lake. But what we had, man, it felt rare. Real. Mornings started with shared coffee and quiet glances across the kitchen table. Afternoons turned into weekend projects, painting the porch, reorganizing the garage for the third time, planting tulips that she swore would finally bloom this year. They never did, but we always tried again the next spring. Christy had this way of making ordinary things feel sacred. Grocery shopping? We'd turn it into a date. She'd quiz me on which fruit was ripe. I'd sneak snacks into the cart. Even standing in the frozen aisle, hands numb, we'd joke about growing old together, eating microwave dinners and still holding hands. Vacations? We didn't need resorts. We took road trips in our old Honda, windows down, radio up, sunburns on both arms from driving too long on back roads. Once, in Arizona, our car broke down in the middle of nowhere. No reception, no mechanic in sight, just a whole lot of heat and time. We sat on the hood, drinking warm water and counting buzzards overhead. And you know what? It was one of my favorite days. That was us stuck, but laughing. We built a home that felt like it belonged in a catalog, but not because it was perfect, because it was lived in. The couch had a sag where we always curled up on Friday nights. The kitchen counter had nicks from 2 mini dinner experiments. And the photo wall? Full of grins and squints, arms around shoulders, and that one shot where our son had chocolate on his face during a Christmas card photo. We kept it anyway. It was real. Our kids grew up watching us, not just live, but love. They saw us hold hands in traffic, dance in the kitchen, argue over paint colors, and then laugh about it 10 minutes later. Christy always said, let's be the kind of couple our kids want to become. And for a long time, I believed we were. People noticed. Friends would say, you two are goals. At church potlucks or PDA nights, folks would nudge me and say, man, Carl, you really lucked out. And I'd smile, because I agreed. I had. She was the soft to my steady, the calm to my overthinking. I managed the finances, she managed the warmth. She remembered birthdays, not just of friends, but their pets. She baked cinnamon rolls every Christmas morning. Even our dog, Max, looked at her like she hung the moon. I wasn't blind. I knew marriage wasn't always perfect. We had our rough patches. Sleepless baby nights. Tight finances. Times we wondered if we were growing apart. But we always made our way back, like magnets, drawn together by something stronger than routine. A choice. A promise. Love. We were partners in every sense. Every decision, from what couch to buy to how to discipline our daughter after she crashed the family minivan, was made together. She'd laugh at my dad jokes. I'd listen to her vent about coworkers I couldn't name. We trusted each other. Respected each other. I thought we were safe. You ever look back at a moment in your life and think, that was it? That was the peak? I didn't know it then, but I was living it. You don't really see the good stuff when you're living it. Not completely. It's like being inside a snow globe before it's been shaken. Still, pretty, a little boring maybe, but safe. You think, this is normal. And maybe it is. Or maybe it's just what you think normal should feel like. That was us. After the kids were born, our life turned into a dance with a familiar rhythm. Not a glamorous one, mind you. More like that old song you hum without realizing, the one that plays softly in the background of every day. Christy and I were just good together. Not perfect, not storybook, but solid. We didn't just love each other, we actually liked each other. We were the couple who shared a blanket on the couch, the couple who always split dessert even when we were trying to eat clean. We had routines, Taco Tuesdays, Saturday pancake breakfasts, Friday night movie marathons where we'd fall asleep halfway through. Not flashy, not Instagram-worthy, but ours. Christy loved traditions. She'd put up the Christmas tree the day after Thanksgiving, no exceptions. She decorated it like it was a department store window, color-coordinated ornaments, ribbons, lights that twinkled just right. I used to tease her, you do this like Martha Stewart's coming over for dinner. She'd smile and say, well, if she does, she'll feel right at home. Birthdays were another thing. She made them an event. For the kids, sure, balloons, handmade cakes, even treasure hunts in the backyard. But for me too. Every year, Without fail, she'd planned something just a little over the top. One year, she got my college buddies to fly in for a surprise poker night. Another year, she booked a weekend at a cabin because I'd mentioned 6 months earlier that I missed the quiet. She remembered things like that. Things I'd forget I even said. I never had to wonder if she loved me. She showed it in the way she packed my lunch, folded my shirts just the way I liked, and stayed up with me when I couldn't sleep. And I showed her, too, in the way I filled up her gas tank without her asking, or rubbed her back when she got those tension knots from sitting too long at her desk. That's what love looks like after the honeymoon, 1,000 small things no one else sees. We weren't flashy. We didn't post selfies or couple goals captions online. But we were the real deal. Or so I thought. Our friends used to joke about it. "You two are disgustingly in sync," my buddy Ron would say. "It's annoying, really." Christy would laugh and say, "It's because I trained him well." And I'd grin like a dope because honestly, I was proud of it. Proud of us. We had our inside jokes. Our grocery code, "Do we need more spaghetti?" Which really meant, "Can we leave early and grab ice cream?" We'd pass notes on sticky tabs when the kids were little and our time alone was measured in minutes. "You still give me butterflies," once said. I kept that one in my wallet for years. She used to do this thing when she was happy. She'd hum. Not a song, not really. Just this soft little tune under her breath, like her own soundtrack. I'd hear it when she was folding laundry, or when she was outside watering the plants. That hum, it was the sound of contentment, of a woman who felt at peace in her own home. That's what made it so comforting. And that's also what made it hurt so much later on. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then, things were just good. We had enough money to be comfortable, not enough to get stupid. Christy worked part-time at the local school, helping with reading programs. I ran a small construction business that kept me busy but let me be home for dinner most nights. We had our circle of friends, church on Sundays, backyard barbecues in the summer, and the occasional weekend getaway when the grandparents took the kids. It wasn't perfect. We had our disagreements. I'm a fixer, the kind of guy who, when Christy had a bad day, wanted to swoop in and offer solutions. She didn't always want that. Sometimes she just wanted me to listen. I learned that the hard way, sure, but I learned. And she learned to give me space when I needed to stew over things before talking. We figured it out, one conversation at a time, one compromise after another. That's what marriage is, right? Not fireworks every day. Just two people choosing each other over and over again, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And Christy, she was easy to choose. She was kind, thoughtful, funny in this dry, sideways kind of way. She'd roll her eyes at my dad jokes, but she always laughed. She was the kind of mom who made scrapbooks, who packed handwritten notes in the kids' lunchboxes, who cried at every school play even if our son was just playing tree number 3. I thought I knew her. Knew her heart. Knew her soul. She was the kind of woman who'd never lie to me. Never hurt me. The kind of woman who'd grow old with me in a rocking chair on the porch, bickering over whether to watch a movie or the ball game. We were that couple, the one people looked at and said, "They've got it figured out." But here's the thing about people who look like they've got it all figured out. Sometimes, they're just really good at hiding the unraveling. Sometimes, the hum gets quieter. Sometimes, you catch your wife looking at the sky a little too long, like she's trying to imagine what's beyond it. And sometimes, she stops humming altogether. I didn't notice it at first. That's the part that still bugs me sometimes. You'd think you'd feel the shift when the person you love starts to drift. But it doesn't happen like a thunderclap. It's more like a slow leak in a tire. Subtle. Quiet. Barely noticeable until the steering starts to pull a little and you think, huh, that's weird. The first clue, and I mean tiny, was how Christy started sleeping just a little bit farther away from me at night. Not miles away, not even an arm's length. Just enough that I'd reach out and feel cool sheets where her shoulder used to be. I figured she was just hot. Or maybe I was snoring more than usual. We were getting older, after all. Then came the phone. She used to leave it on the kitchen counter at night. Ding ding, vibrate, whatever, she didn't care. But then, slowly, it started coming to bed with her. Face down. Always face down. Work emails, she said one night when I noticed her typing away under the covers. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Christy was a teacher's aide, not exactly the type to run a drug cartel on the side. If she said it was about lesson plans, I figured it was about lesson plans. But that's how it starts, isn't it? With little things you shrug off. We had a new gardener around that time. Name was Joel. Young guy. Maybe late 20s, early 30s. Tan. Quiet. The type who nodded instead of talked. Christy found him through a friend at the PDA. Said he was reasonable and reliable. He was good at what he did. I'll give him that. Lawn looked like a golf course. I didn't think much of it then. Why would I? Joel was just another guy trimming hedges and blowing leaves into neat piles. A blur in the background of our lives. One day, I even offered him a bottle of water and we chatted about the heat. Nice family, he said. Your wife's real kind. I nodded, proud. She's the best, I told him. And I meant it. But over time, I noticed Christy started taking more of an interest in the garden. She'd never been that into it before. Weeds, mulch, that was always my domain. But suddenly she was out there every afternoon, asking Joel about pruning techniques and fertilizer ratios like she was training to be a botanist. I teased her about it. You trading me in for a younger man with a leaf blower? She laughed. Oh, please, Carl. Don't be ridiculous. And I didn't push. Why would I? A man doesn't interrogate his wife for finding new hobbies. Besides, life was busy. Our daughter was applying to colleges. Our son had joined the soccer team and had games every weekend. My business was picking up, which meant longer days, more contracts to juggle. Christy and I started seeing each other mostly in passing, handing off dinner duties, comparing calendars, asking if the laundry had been switched over. We were like two trains passing on parallel tracks. Same destination, same routine. But we'd stopped riding in the same car. The thing is, you don't always miss the big stuff. You miss the little things, the way she used to lean on your shoulder during movies. The way she called just to hear your voice, not to ask about groceries. The way her eyes used to light up when you walked into the room, like she'd forgotten what air felt like without you in it. That spark had dimmed, and I blamed myself. Naturally, I figured maybe I wasn't as attentive. Maybe I hadn't told her she was beautiful enough lately. Maybe she needed more support, more something. I started trying harder, brought home flowers on a Tuesday for no reason. Planned a surprise date night at that Italian place she liked. She smiled, said thank you, kissed my cheek. But I could feel it, something was missing. The warmth was there, but the depth? The depth was fading. I told myself we were just in a busy season. It happens, right? Life gets noisy. Kids, work, taxes, aging parents. You get tired. You forget to check in. You lose your rhythm. But I didn't know, not yet, that Christy had already changed the station. Around this time, I noticed she'd get dressed a little differently on the days Joel came by. Nothing obvious. Just a little more put together. A bit more makeup. Hair done up. That floral sundress I hadn't seen in years, the one that fit like it was made for her, made 3 appearances in 1 month. I remember one afternoon I got home early from a job. Christy didn't hear me come in. I saw her out the back window, standing in the yard with Joel. They were laughing about something. I couldn't hear what. She touched his arm lightly. It was a friendly gesture. Too friendly? Maybe. I didn't know what to make of it. She came inside a few minutes later, startled to see me. You're home early, she said, fixing her hair. Figured I'd beat the traffic, I said. She kissed my cheek and offered me lemonade. She looked perfect. Too perfect. And that was the first time I felt it. Not jealousy. Not anger. Just doubt. A seed, small and stubborn, that rooted itself in the back of my mind. But I still didn't say anything. Because to say it out loud would mean admitting that something could be wrong. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. I've heard folks say, trust your gut. I always thought that was something people said when they didn't have the facts but wanted to sound wise. But that fall, my gut started whispering things I didn't want to hear. It was a Saturday morning, the kind where nothing's really happening, just errands and chores in life. Christy and I were sipping coffee on the back patio. The sun was doing that warm, gentle thing it does in October, just enough to make you think the world's still good. Max, our old golden retriever, was chasing butterflies like he still had puppy knees. She was quiet, staring at the yard. You okay? I asked. She blinked, smiled. Yeah, just thinking. About what? She hesitated. Just time. Life. Feels like everything's moving fast lately. I nodded. It does. And it did. Our daughter was months from heading off to college. Our son was suddenly shaving. We were staring down the barrel of an empty nest, and, I'll be honest, that scared me a little. Not because I didn't want the kids to grow. They were ready. But because I realized how much of our identity had become wrapped up in being parents. What would we be when it was just us again? I wanted to ask her that. I wanted to say, when it's just you and me again, will that be enough? But I didn't. I just reached out and held her hand. Her fingers curled around mine, but not tightly. Not like before. She pulled away a minute later. I should check on the laundry, she said. And that was that. Little things started piling up after that. She'd forget plans we'd made, a dinner with friends, a movie we'd talked about seeing. She started staying late at school for meetings. Her phone, once an afterthought, was now always with her, and always locked. She said it was because of student confidentiality. Maybe that was true. Maybe. The truth is, I started paying attention in a way I hadn't in years. Not because I wanted to catch her in something, but because I didn't want to. I was desperate to prove my gut wrong. But it's funny what you start to notice once your eyes are open. One night, I came home late from a client meeting and found Christy sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She didn't hear me come in. "What's got you smiling?" I asked. She jumped. "Oh, just a funny meme one of the teachers sent me." "Let's see," I said playfully, stepping toward her. She clicked her phone off before I got close. "It's not even that funny," she said quickly. "Just teacher stuff." I nodded. "Got it." I didn't push. I just went to the kitchen and stood there for a minute, staring at the microwave clock, listening to the hum of the fridge, wondering when exactly things had changed. That night, she fell asleep facing the wall. A few days later, I offered to take her out to dinner. Just us. No kids, no distractions. A little reset. She looked hesitant. "Can we rain check? Everything okay?" "Just tired. Long week. Next weekend." "Sure," I said. But next weekend turned into next month, and by then, the space between us had grown into something I could feel in my bones. I started checking things, not in a snooping way, not at first. Just noticing. Her car had more miles than I expected. She had new clothes I hadn't seen before, tasteful, a little dressier than usual. She started wearing perfume again, the one she used to save for anniversaries and weddings. And every Thursday, Joel showed up to tend the garden. I'd never been home during those visits before. But one Thursday, I made a point to be. I parked my truck at the end of the street and walked the long way back to the house. I came in through the side gate, quiet as I could manage. And there they were, Christy and Joel, standing near the rose bushes. Nothing inappropriate. Not really. But she was laughing, and he was looking at her the way a man looks at a woman he wants to know better. And she wasn't pulling away. I stood there for a while, hidden behind the fence, watching, listening. Then I turned around and walked back the way I came. I didn't confront her. Not then. I told myself I didn't know anything, that it was just my imagination, that I was being insecure. But that night, when we sat across from each other at dinner, and she smiled at me like everything was fine, I felt something crack inside me. Not a big crack, just a hairline fracture. But fractures have a way of growing. You ever hear something break in the other room, but you don't go check it right away? You just sit there, still, listening, trying to figure out what fell, how bad the damage is, whether it can be put back together. That was me. Around the time everything started slipping out from under me, only the thing breaking wasn't a vase or a glass. It was my marriage. And I didn't want to look at the pieces yet. Christy's birthday was in mid-April. Always a big deal in our house. Normally, I'd planned something early, dinner reservations, a weekend away, or at least a small gathering with friends and family. But this year, I hesitated. Couldn't put my finger on why. She beat me to it. "Oh, don't make a fuss this year," she said one morning, breezing past me in the kitchen. "I just want something low-key." "Low-key?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "That doesn't sound like you." She shrugged. "Just not in the mood for all the hoopla. Maybe just dinner, the two of us. I don't even want a cake." Now, that might sound small, but Christy always wanted a cake. Always wanted the kids to sing off-key and Max to get too excited and knock over the presents. This wasn't just not in the mood. This was something else. Still, I nodded. "Sure thing, sweetheart. Just us." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks, Carl. You're the best." I should have felt warm hearing that. But instead, I felt cold. The week of her birthday, she seemed restless. Always checking the time. Phone glued to her side. She started doing this thing where she'd leave the room to take calls, which wasn't normal for her. Once, I caught the tail end of one as she came back from the porch. "No, I can't. He's home. Text me later." She jumped when she saw me standing by the fridge. "Oh, hey. I was just on the phone with Sharon." Sharon, her coworker. The one I'd met maybe twice, who always looked like she smelled something bad. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just work stuff," she said too quickly. "Some drama with the reading program." I nodded. "Got it." I didn't push, but I felt the weight in my chest start to grow. That dull, gnawing kind. Like a headache you can't shake. The night of her birthday, I took her to dinner like she asked. Just us. Candlelight, quiet table in the corner, her favorite wine. She looked beautiful. Still did, even then. That part never changed. But something was different behind her smile, like a woman playing a role, reading a script she wasn't sure she believed anymore. Midway through the meal, she excused herself to the restroom and left her phone on the table. Now, I'm not proud of what happened next, but I'm also not going to pretend I didn't do it. The screen lit up. A message. Happy birthday, beautiful. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. No name. Just a number. I didn't recognize it. I picked up the phone. My hands were shaking. I didn't unlock it. Couldn't even if I wanted to. But I stared at that message like it was shouting at me. When she came back, she didn't notice me staring. Or maybe she did and pretended not to. We finished dinner. She thanked me. We drove home in silence. That night, in bed, she curled up next to me and rested her head on my chest, just like she used to. And I lay there, wide awake, wondering who had texted her. Wondering what yesterday meant. Wondering how a man could live with someone for 20 years and still not see something coming. The next morning, I got up early. Sat in the kitchen with my coffee. Max at my feet. Just thinking. I didn't need to be Sherlock Holmes. I didn't need hard proof or a smoking gun. I had everything I needed already. I just didn't want it. But sometimes life doesn't wait for you to be ready. They say when a bone breaks clean, it heals stronger. But when it splinters, when it shatters in those tiny, almost invisible ways, it can take forever to come back from that. That's what betrayal felt like. It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't Christy storming out the door, bags packed, yelling about needing more excitement. That would have been too obvious. No, what happened was slow. Surgical. Like someone picking away at the foundation of a house until it sinks into itself. And even then, I still wasn't ready to call it what it was. Not until I saw it for myself. It started with a gut punch disguised as a casual conversation. I'd come home early from work one Thursday, not for any reason, just because I felt like being home. That instinct, the one you can't explain, was tapping on my shoulder again. Christy was out back, trimming the rose bushes. Joel, our gardener, was kneeling next to her, pointing at something in the mulch. They were close. Closer than I'd ever been with someone I wasn't married to. I watched from the kitchen window. He said something, and she laughed, really laughed. The kind of laugh she used to save for me. Then she touched his shoulder. It was small, barely a graze, but it sent a chill down my spine. Later that night, I checked the outdoor camera footage. I'd forgotten it even had a memory card. We used it mostly for packages and the occasional nosy raccoon. But it caught them, all right, side by side in the garden, laughing, touching, lingering just a little too long before he left. I watched the footage twice, then a third time, and then I sat in the dark for a while, trying to breathe. The next day, I called a buddy of mine, Dean, who runs a small security company. I told him I was worried about a break-in. Not a lie, not exactly. Just not the kind of break-in he thought I meant. He came by that afternoon, helped me set up a few discreet cameras. No wires, nothing flashy. One by the shed, one by the side gate, and one angled toward the back patio, where Christy liked to drink her tea in the afternoons when Joel was working. I told myself I just needed peace of mind. But deep down, I knew I was preparing for war. It didn't take long. The following Tuesday, I told Christy I had a late meeting. Truth was, I parked my truck 2 blocks over and walked back home. Quiet as a mouse. Joel's truck was already there. I slipped through the neighbor's yard, eased into the shed, and checked the feed from the patio camera on my phone. And there they were. Not kissing. Not doing anything explicitly damning. But you didn't need volume to hear what was being said in that body language. She leaned in toward him like a magnet. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. She didn't flinch. They looked like a couple. Like us. I don't know how long I watched. Time stopped making sense. Eventually, Joel left. Christy stayed out there for a while longer, sipping her tea and staring out into the yard like nothing had happened. I went home an hour later, through the front door like I'd just pulled in from work. She smiled at me, asked about my day, kissed my cheek. And I stood there wondering how long she'd been living this double life right under my nose. That night, I didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe next to me, wondering who she was dreaming about. The next morning, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her phone. I'd never once snooped through her things. Never felt the need. Trust wasn't a rule for us. It was the air we breathed. But that morning, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone from the nightstand. She'd recently stopped locking it, maybe out of carelessness or overconfidence. Either way, it opened right up. The first thing I saw was a thread with a contact named Garden Supply. Not subtle. Not at all. I miss you already. Same here. You smelled amazing today. Wish we had more time. Soon. I'll find a way. My hands went cold. I kept reading. Messages that blurred together. Plans. Secrets. A photo of Christy I'd never seen before, an address I didn't recognize. Taken in the back garden, sunlight hitting her just right. She looked beautiful. She didn't look like my wife. She looked like someone else. Someone new. Someone I didn't know. When she got out of the shower, I was already downstairs, making coffee like nothing had happened. She kissed my neck like it was any other day. And I let her. Because I wasn't ready yet. Not to confront her. Not to explode. I needed a plan. I needed time. And most of all, I needed to figure out who I was without her. Because in that moment, for the first time in over 2 decades, I realized something terrifying. I built my entire life around someone who had quietly started dismantling me from the inside out. They say knowledge is power. But when you find out your wife, your Christy, the woman who wore your last name like it was stitched into her soul, has been sneaking around with the gardener like this was some soap opera you forgot to turn off. That kind of knowledge doesn't feel powerful. It feels like standing in your own living room and realizing someone else has been rearranging the furniture when you weren't looking. It's disorienting. That Friday, after I read the messages and watched the camera footage for the 4th time, I didn't get angry. I didn't throw anything. I didn't confront her with a dramatic speech like the ones you see in movies. I just went out to the shed, sat down on the old workbench, and stared at a broken rake I'd been meaning to fix for 2 years. It was a quiet moment, but it might have been the most important one of my life. Because I wasn't thinking about her. I was thinking about me, who I had become, what I had tolerated, how I'd spent the last year making excuses for someone who'd stopped showing up a long time ago. I wasn't a perfect man. Let's get that out there. I wasn't the kind of husband who wrote poems or brought home flowers every week. But I was loyal. I was steady. I showed up. I built a life with my hands and protected it with my heart. And she'd thrown a match at it and walked away while it burned. Later that day, I called a lawyer. Her name was Denise. Calm voice, sharp mind. The kind of woman who'd seen this story play out 1,000 times and still had the decency not to sound jaded about it. Do you have evidence? She asked. Oh yeah, I said. I've got texts, video, even a few love notes disguised as gardening invoices. She chuckled. Well, at least we won't have to fish for motive. She explained what my options were. Since we lived in a no-fault state, infidelity didn't change much legally. But it could help, especially with the right documentation. She told me to start gathering financials. Change my passwords. Make a quiet plan. You don't have to go nuclear, she said. Just don't let her blindside you. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there. I felt calm. That was the strangest part. I'd spent the last few weeks drowning in confusion and disbelief, in this constant tug-of-war between what I thought I had and what I now knew I didn't. But once the truth settled in, once it took its seat at the table, the noise went quiet. That night, I didn't say a word to Christy. She came home late, said something about a staff dinner. I nodded, pretending to be half asleep on the couch. She smelled like wine and someone else's cologne. The next morning, I cooked breakfast. French toast. Her favorite. She kissed my cheek and said, "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," I said. "Just figured it's been a while." And while she ate, complimenting the cinnamon-to-egg ratio like nothing was wrong, I made a mental checklist. Call the bank. Secure my accounts. Back up my photos, the real ones, the family ones, before they started looking like lies. Talk to the kids. Carefully. And when the time came. Tell everyone. That last one was going to hurt. But it was necessary. Because Christy didn't just break my trust, she broke the image we'd sold to everyone else. Family, friends, neighbors, all of them thought we were the couple who had it all figured out. They deserved to know the truth. Not for gossip, but for clarity. And maybe, just maybe, to remind folks that betrayal doesn't always show up in black lace and lipstick. Sometimes, it shows up in gardening gloves and a smile. You ever sit on something so heavy for so long that when you finally let it go, you don't even feel lighter, you just feel awake? That was me the week I started telling people. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like cleaning up a crime scene with the lights finally on. I didn't plan it all at once. I just started small, like tossing pebbles into still water and watching the ripples take shape. The first person I told was my sister, Dana. She's always been the blunt one in the family, the kind of person who shows up uninvited and rearranges your pantry because your system's a disaster. But she loves hard. Always has. We met for lunch, just the two of us. She thought it was about our dad's birthday coming up. "How's Christy?" she asked over grilled cheese and tomato soup. I took a breath. That long, steady kind of breath you take before a truth that can't be taken back. "She's been seeing someone." Dana blinked. "Wait, what?" "She's cheating," I said. "With the gardener." Dana put her spoon down and stared at me like I just recited her tax returns backward. "You serious?" "Dead." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned back in her chair and said, "Well, that explains the matching flower beds and her sudden obsession with organic fertilizer." We laughed, and then we didn't. The silence that followed was heavy, not with shock, but with mourning. For what we'd all thought Christy was. For what we'd all believed we were watching in our picture-perfect little family. "I always thought you two were the real deal," Dana said. So did I. I told her everything about the messages, the videos, the phone calls. Her face went from sympathy to fury to sadness in a matter of minutes. "She doesn't get to keep this quiet," she finally said. "I'm not keeping it quiet," I replied. "Not anymore." That weekend, I told my folks. It was harder with them. They'd always adored Christy. My mom used to call her the glue. She said we were lucky to have someone who kept the family close. Kept me grounded. When I told them the truth, my dad just nodded. Didn't say much. But my mom, she cried. "Are you sure?" she whispered. I showed her the proof. She closed the photo album she'd been flipping through and said, "I don't want her in this house again." Word traveled faster than I expected. My daughter found out through Dana's kid. I was going to tell her myself, but word beat me to it. She called me crying. "Dad, please tell me this isn't real." I wish I could. The hardest part wasn't losing Christy. It was watching my kids' image of their mother begin to erode. I didn't want to ruin that for them, but I couldn't let them keep living a lie either. They were old enough to understand, and one day, they'd need to know that silence is its own kind of betrayal. Then came the part that caught Christy off guard. I told her friends. Not all of them. Just the ones who had stood up at our wedding. The ones who toasted us with champagne and called us couple goals. I kept it simple. A text. Short and factual. "Just so you're aware, Christy and I are separating. She's been having an affair with our gardener. I have evidence, and I'm moving forward with legal separation. I'd appreciate your discretion, but I felt you deserved to hear it from me." Some responded with shock. Some with support. One or two never replied at all, which told me everything I needed to know about where their loyalties were. But a few were angry. At her. "You didn't deserve that," one friend wrote. "She always had this weird flirty thing going, but I never thought." Another said, "I'm so sorry. I always thought she looked at Joel too long. I should have said something." And Christy? She didn't see it coming. I don't know when she started realizing that the walls were closing in. Maybe when her friend Lisa stopped liking her Facebook posts. Maybe when Dana unfollowed her on Instagram. Maybe when she came home and found the front door keys no longer worked. I didn't yell. I didn't rage. I simply changed the locks, left a sealed envelope on the porch, and texted her. "You no longer live here. Please check the letter." In the envelope was a letter, calm, clear, and signed by me and my attorney. It laid out the terms. She had 48 hours to retrieve her belongings under supervision. She was being removed from joint accounts. Credit cards were canceled. Divorce was in motion. Her affair had consequences, and this was them. She didn't reply for hours. When she finally did, it was a single text. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a while. Then I typed back. "Everything I had to say, I said by staying faithful. Everything you had to say, you said when you didn't." She didn't text again. The morning she came to collect her things, it rained. Not a thunderstorm. Not some cinematic downpour. Just one of those soft, steady drizzles that makes everything feel heavy and honest. Felt fitting. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and Max curled up at my feet. Calm. Ready. I'd already moved her boxes to the front hallway. Her clothes, her books, her framed motivational quotes about love and loyalty, the ones that meant nothing now. There was a knock at the door. Not a ring. Not loud. Just hesitant. I opened it to find Christy standing there with a borrowed umbrella and a forced smile that didn't fool either of us. "Hey," she said softly, like that would rewind the last 3 months. "Hey." She stepped inside, I scanning the house like it had become unfamiliar. Maybe it had. I'd moved a few things. Not out of spite. Just comfort. I needed the space to feel like mine again. I won't be long, she said. I know. She walked past me, arms crossed like she was bracing herself for judgment. I didn't follow her. I just sat back down, sipped my coffee, and stared out the window while she moved quietly through the hallway, packing her own history. After about 10 minutes, she came back in, stood near the table, and finally said what I knew was coming. Can we talk? I nodded. We can talk. Doesn't mean I'll answer. She flinched, just a little. I didn't say it to be cruel. I said it because I had nothing left to give her. I never meant to hurt you, Carl. That one always gets me, never meant. Like accidents happen with full awareness, planning, and two people pressed together behind a rosebush. You did it anyway, I said. She looked down. It just happened. No. See, falling in love happens. Running out of milk happens. You don't trip and land in someone else's arms over and over again. That takes work. She didn't respond. Just stood there, biting the inside of her cheek, a nervous habit I used to find endearing. Now it just made me tired. I miss us, she said quietly. I let that sit in the air for a minute. There is no us, I finally said. There was. And I'm proud of that life we built. But you ended it the moment you decided it wasn't enough. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that, I said. Calm. Firm. You got bored. Or restless. Or maybe you just wanted to see if you could still make a man look at you like I used to. And maybe he did. But now you've got nothing. Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't gloat. I just watched. I lost myself, she said. You didn't lose yourself. You left yourself behind. Big difference. She tried to reach for my hand across the table, but I pulled back. Christy, I said, you are no longer my wife. You are no longer my problem. And starting today, you're no longer my pain. She blinked, and that's when the tears broke loose. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know, I said, but I can't carry your guilt too. I've got enough weight to rebuild what you tore down. There was nothing left to say after that. She picked up her last box, walked to the door, and paused like she wanted to turn around. But she didn't. She walked out into the rain. Didn't use the umbrella. Didn't look back. And neither did I. You know what no one tells you about starting over? The silence is deafening and beautiful. The first morning after Christy was gone, I woke up expecting something. Drama, regret, maybe a last-minute knock at the door. But there was nothing. Just the sound of rain on the roof, Max snoring by the bed, and the odd stillness of a house that had finally been scrubbed clean of lies. For the first time in what felt like years, I took a full breath. No tension in my chest. No pit in my stomach. Just space. I didn't rush to fill it. I let the house be quiet. Let the rooms echo. I even left her side of the bed empty for a while, not out of sadness, just as a reminder that I'd made it through the storm. The first thing I did? I bought a new coffee maker. I know that sounds ridiculous, but ours had been this fancy thing Christy picked out, all chrome and buttons and settings I never used. So I went out, bought a plain OL drip machine with a glass pot and one switch, on or off. It made coffee the way I liked it, strong, hot, and uncomplicated. Little things like that became my new religion. Reclaiming the house one drawer at a time. I donated her stack of inspirational marriage books. Took her floral prints off the walls and replaced them with framed black and white photos I'd taken at the farm. I even bought new towels, not beige, not embroidered, just regular blue ones. It felt good. Like shaking off a sweater that never quite fit right. My daughter came over one Saturday, nervous, like she was tiptoeing through a minefield. She looked around and said, "Wow, the house feels different." I smiled. That's the idea. She hugged me tight. We didn't talk about Christy much. She'd made her feelings clear in a few choice texts after the truth came out. But we did talk about life, work, the grandkids, and the latest episode of the crime show we both pretend not to watch religiously. She asked me, "Are you lonely?" I thought about it. Sometimes, I said. But it's the good kind of lonely. The kind where I know I'm safe. I'll take that any day. And I meant it. I started doing more at the farm. Fixing things I'd let slide. Painting the barn. Reorganizing the old workshop. I even built a bench from reclaimed wood, just for me and Max. We sit out there most evenings, watching the sky change color while I sip black coffee and he sniffs the wind like he knows something I don't. It's peaceful. I got back into my music, too. I've got an old guitar that used to gather dust behind the closet door. One afternoon, I pulled it out, tuned it up, and started playing the old songs I used to sing back when Christy and I were first married. Funny thing, those songs still sounded like me. She didn't take my voice when she left. She didn't take my soul. She didn't even take the best parts of my story. She just left me the chance to write the next chapter with clearer eyes. And no, I haven't started dating. People keep asking. Neighbors, friends, even Dana, who's apparently made it her life's mission to get me on a blind date with a widowed math teacher named Jeanette who owns her own juicer. Maybe one day. But for now, I like being alone with my peace. I like knowing that every single thing in this house, from the towels to the toothbrush, is here because I chose it. I like walking past the garden and not feeling anything but fresh air. I like not pretending anymore. Because for years, I held on to a story that wasn't true. Now I'm writing a new one page at a time. And this time, it's honest. It started with a text. Hey, do you have a minute? 3 months of silence, and suddenly she reappears like a ghost with good manners. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the screen. I could have ignored it. Could have deleted it. Could have blocked her altogether. But instead, I did something worse. I responded. 1 minute. She replied within seconds. Can I come by? I took a long sip of my coffee, let Max out into the yard, and typed. 1 hour. Front porch. That's it. No smiley face. No, hope you're doing okay. Just boundaries. It was a clear, sunny Tuesday when she showed up. No rain this time. No drama in the clouds. She stepped out of her car slowly, like the driveway might collapse under her. She looked different. Not bad. Not disheveled. Just smaller somehow. A woman who had lost something she didn't think could be taken from her. I didn't stand when she approached. I just sat there on the porch bench, arms crossed, coffee in hand, letting her feel the weight of what she'd broken. Hi, Carl, she said, voice soft. Hey. She looked around like she was trying to find some version of her old life in the potted plants and porch swing. But everything had changed. Even the wind chimes were new. I wasn't sure if you'd respond, she said. I almost didn't. She nodded, as if she'd practiced that reaction. I didn't offer her a seat. I wanted to say I'm sorry, she began. You already did. I know. I mean, I wanted to say it to your face. I've been doing a lot of thinking. About what I did. Who I became. You became someone else, I said. And that woman doesn't live here anymore. She winced, but to her credit, she didn't try to argue. I've lost so much. And that surprises you? I asked. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw real panic there. Not guilt. Not even grief. Just the realization that consequences were no longer theoretical. You told people, she said quietly. I told the truth, I corrected. You made the choices. I just stopped covering for them. Her shoulders sank. Everyone looks at me like I'm some kind of. Because you are, I cut in. Calm. Not cruel. Just honest. You're the woman who cheated on a good man for a fling with a guy who trims hedges for a living and thinks emotional maturity is a brand of fertilizer. She almost smiled at that. Almost. I was stupid, she said. You were selfish. Silence stretched out between us like old wallpaper, faded, peeling, but still stuck in spots. I don't want to fix things, she said. I know I can't. I thought maybe we could talk. Maybe not today. But eventually. I shook my head slowly. Christy, you lost the right to my time when you gave yourself to someone else. There is no eventually. There's only what is, and what is doesn't include you. She looked down at her hands. No wedding ring. No sparkle in her eyes. Just a woman who finally saw the price tag on the life she threw away. Doesn't it hurt? She asked. To be alone? I smiled. No. It hurt when I was with you and didn't realize I already was. She nodded. Wiped a tear. Turned to leave. I didn't stop her. Didn't offer a hug. Didn't ask how she was doing. Didn't tell her I'd always care, because the truth is, I don't. Not anymore. And you know what? That was the most peaceful moment I've ever had on that porch. Sometimes, when the sun's just coming up over the trees behind the house, I catch my reflection in the kitchen window. And for the first time in a long time, I like what I see. Not because I look younger. I don't. The grays are still there. The lines a little deeper. The eyes a little more tired. But there's peace now. That deep, steady kind that doesn't come from pretending everything's fine, but from walking through the fire, barefoot, and coming out the other side still you. I didn't plan to rebuild my life like this. I didn't ask for the crash, or the quiet, or the days where my dog was my only conversation partner. But in the stillness, I found something Christy couldn't take, me. Not the husband. Not the provider. Just Carl. Turns out, I like him. Turns out, he's funny. A little stubborn. Still makes coffee too strong. Still hums when he fixes things. Still keeps a picture of his kids in his wallet like it's the only ID he needs. I've gone on a few dates, sure. Nothing serious. Just coffee and conversation. One woman asked what I was looking for. I told her, someone I don't have to wonder about when I'm not in the room. She smiled. We didn't go out again. But that's okay. I'm not rushing. I'm not filling a void. I'm living a life that doesn't need patching, just good company now and then. I still get the occasional message from someone who heard what happened. Folks who want to offer condolences like I survived a natural disaster. And in a way, I guess I did. I usually just say, thank you. I'm good now. Because I am. Here's the truth no one talks about. Betrayal doesn't define you. It doesn't mark you forever or make you unworthy of love or respect. It just shows you who was never worthy of you. And once you realize that, once you truly believe it, you stop needing closure, apologies, or explanations. You stop writing scenes in your head that end differently. You start living. Really living. These days, my joy comes simple. Fresh coffee. A walk through the garden. Yeah, I still keep it up, but now it's mine. The sound of my daughter's voice on the phone. The way Max thumps his tail when I walk in the room. I'm not bitter. That's not my style. But I am better. Better because I kept my dignity when it would have been easy to lose it. Better because I didn't burn down the house just because she left the door open. Better because I finally looked in the mirror and saw a man who didn't deserve what happened, but came out stronger anyway. If you're still with me, reading this, maybe you're where I was, confused, hurt, holding on to a life that stopped holding on to you. Let me tell you something from one old soul to another. You are not what they did to you. You are who you chose to be when the easy road would have been vengeance. And if you can hold on to that, you'll be just fine.